Question 1. Strategic planning requires a robust process for identifying and assessing potential risks. A litigation management professional is tasked with developing this process for an upcoming strategic initiative. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of effective risk management and professional duty of care within the CLMP framework? Option A. An assessment that prioritizes risks based on the loudest or most frequently expressed concerns from a limited group of senior executives. Option B. A rapid assessment that relies on readily available public information and general industry trends, without in-depth internal analysis or specific scenario modeling. Option C. A multifaceted approach that incorporates historical data analysis, expert consultations, scenario planning, and consideration of both internal and external factors to identify and evaluate a broad spectrum of potential risks. Option D. A streamlined process that focuses primarily on risks that have historically resulted in significant financial losses, as these are the most likely to recur. The correct answer is C. A multifaceted approach that incorporates historical data analysis, expert consultations, scenario planning, and consideration of both internal and external factors to identify and evaluate a broad spectrum of potential risks. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a litigation manager to balance competing interests, the need to proactively identify and assess risks to inform strategic decisions, while also ensuring that the assessment process itself does not create undue bias or overlook critical, albeit less obvious, potential issues. The CLMP framework emphasizes a structured and objective approach to risk management, aligning with the professional duty of care and the principles of sound corporate governance. Careful judgment is required to move beyond superficial risk identification to a deeper, more nuanced understanding of potential impacts and likelihoods. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive risk identification and assessment process that utilizes multiple data sources and analytical techniques. This approach is right because it aligns with the CLMP emphasis on evidence-based decision-making and the proactive management of legal and business risks. Regulatory frameworks and ethical guidelines for professionals in this field mandate a thorough and objective evaluation of potential threats and opportunities. This includes considering both internal and external factors, utilizing historical data, expert opinions, and scenario planning to build a robust risk profile. Such a comprehensive approach ensures that strategic planning is informed by a realistic understanding of the potential challenges and their implications, thereby enabling more effective resource allocation and mitigation strategies. An incorrect approach that relies solely on readily available, high-profile risks fails because it is inherently incomplete and prone to overlooking emerging or less apparent threats that could have significant consequences. This approach violates the professional obligation to conduct a thorough assessment and can lead to strategic missteps due to a skewed perception of the risk landscape. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes only those risks with immediate financial implications neglects the broader spectrum of potential risks, including reputational damage, regulatory noncompliance, or operational disruptions, which can have long-term and substantial negative impacts. This narrow focus is ethically unsound and strategically imprudent, as it fails to uphold the duty of care to protect the organization from a wide range of potential harms. An incorrect approach that relies exclusively on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a select few individuals lacks the objectivity and rigor required for effective risk assessment. This can introduce bias and lead to an inaccurate understanding of risk likelihood and impact, undermining the integrity of the strategic planning process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve establishing a clear risk management framework, defining the scope of the assessment, identifying relevant stakeholders, and employing a variety of qualitative and quantitative tools. This process should be iterative, allowing for continuous monitoring and reassessment of risks as circumstances evolve. Professionals should always strive for objectivity, seek diverse perspectives, and document their findings and the rationale behind their assessments to ensure accountability and transparency. Question 2. Regulatory review indicates that a litigation team is utilizing a cloud-based document review platform for a complex commercial dispute involving highly sensitive trade secrets. The team lead, under pressure to expedite the review process, has proposed granting full administrative access to all paralegals and junior associates involved in the case, allowing them to download, modify, and delete documents as they deem necessary for their assigned tasks. This approach is being considered to streamline workflow and reduce the need for constant requests for document access. Which of the following approaches best adheres to the ethical and regulatory framework governing litigation management professionals in this scenario? Option A. Implement granular access controls within the platform, assigning specific roles and permissions based on each team member's responsibilities, and establish a documented protocol for requesting and handling sensitive documents, ensuring all actions are logged and auditable. Option B. Delay the implementation of detailed access controls and security protocols until the initial phase of document review is completed, focusing solely on the substantive review of the documents first. Option C. Rely exclusively on the document review platform vendor's default security settings without any further customization or independent verification of access levels for the litigation team. Option D. Grant full administrative access to all paralegals and junior associates to expedite the review process, trusting their professional judgment to handle documents appropriately and relying on the platform's general security features. The correct answer is A. Implement granular access controls within the platform, assigning specific roles and permissions based on each team member's responsibilities, and establish a documented protocol for requesting and handling sensitive documents, ensuring all actions are logged and auditable. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between efficient case management and the absolute duty to preserve evidence integrity and client confidentiality, particularly within the context of litigation management. The rapid pace of litigation and the volume of discoverable documents necessitate the use of technology, but the ethical and regulatory obligations surrounding document review platforms are paramount. Professionals must navigate the complexities of data security, unauthorized access, and the potential for inadvertent disclosure or spoliation of evidence. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen platform and workflow not only meet the practical demands of the case, but also strictly adhere to all applicable professional conduct rules and data privacy regulations. The correct approach involves implementing robust security protocols and access controls within the document review platform, coupled with a clear, documented workflow that delineates responsibilities and ensures that only authorized personnel have access to sensitive information. This approach prioritizes data integrity, confidentiality, and compliance with discovery obligations. Specifically, it involves configuring the platform to restrict access based on role and privilege, employing encryption for data at rest and in transit, and maintaining audit trails of all user activity. This aligns with the professional duty of competence, diligence, and loyalty to the client, as well as the regulatory requirements for handling sensitive client data and evidence in litigation. An incorrect approach that involves granting broad, unrestricted access to the document review platform to all members of the litigation team, regardless of their specific role or need to know, represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This exposes the client's confidential information to potential unauthorized disclosure and increases the risk of inadvertent spoliation of evidence if individuals without proper training or oversight interact with documents inappropriately. It violates the duty of confidentiality and the obligation to safeguard client property and information. Another incorrect approach, which is to delay the implementation of security measures and access controls until a later stage of the review process, is also professionally unacceptable. This creates a window of vulnerability where sensitive data could be compromised. The principle of proportionality in discovery and the duty to preserve evidence require proactive measures from the outset of litigation. Waiting to implement security is a failure of diligence and competence, potentially leading to breaches of confidentiality and discovery violations. Finally, an incorrect approach that relies solely on the vendor's default security settings without independent verification or customization to the specific needs of the case is insufficient. While vendors provide security, the ultimate responsibility for protecting client data and ensuring compliance rests with the legal professional. A failure to conduct due diligence on the platform's security features and to tailor them to the case's requirements can lead to regulatory sanctions and ethical breaches. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment of the chosen document, review platform, and workflow. This includes evaluating the platform's security architecture, data handling policies, and compliance certifications. Professionals must then design a workflow that assigns specific roles and permissions, implements strict access controls, and establishes clear protocols for document handling, review, and production. Regular audits and training for the review team are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and to mitigate potential risks. The guiding principle should always be the protection of client interests, the integrity of the evidence, and adherence to all legal and ethical obligations. Question 3. Stakeholder feedback indicates a desire to expedite the initial planning phase for a complex multi-party litigation project to quickly establish a preliminary budget and timeline. Which approach best balances this desire with the professional obligations of a certified litigation management professional? Option A. Focus primarily on identifying the lowest cost resource options for the project to ensure the preliminary budget is as lean as possible, deferring detailed impact analysis to a later stage. Option B. Rely on historical data from similar past cases to construct the preliminary budget and timeline, assuming current circumstances will not significantly deviate from those precedents. Option C. Conduct a rapid initial planning session with key internal team members to define high-level objectives, and then proceed with a preliminary budget and timeline based on these assumptions. Option D. Initiate a comprehensive impact assessment that involves detailed consultation with all identified stakeholders, analysis of potential risks and opportunities, and a thorough evaluation of how proposed plans align with overarching litigation strategy and client objectives before finalizing the preliminary budget and timeline. The correct answer is C. Conduct a rapid initial planning session with key internal team members to define high-level objectives, and then proceed with a preliminary budget and timeline based on these assumptions. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing competing stakeholder interests and potential impacts on the litigation process with the need for efficient project planning. The Certified Litigation Management Professional (CLMP) designation implies adherence to specific professional standards and ethical guidelines, which are paramount in managing litigation projects. The core of the challenge lies in accurately assessing the downstream effects of initial planning decisions on the overall litigation lifecycle, including resource allocation, timelines, and potential risks. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that proactively identifies and evaluates potential consequences of proposed project plans on all relevant aspects of the litigation. This includes considering how changes in scope, resources, or timelines might affect legal strategy, evidence gathering, court deadlines, and ultimately, the client's objectives. This aligns with the CLMP responsibility to manage litigation projects effectively and ethically, ensuring that planning decisions are informed by a thorough understanding of potential ramifications. Regulatory frameworks and professional guidelines for litigation management emphasize foresight, risk mitigation, and informed decision-making, all of which are embodied in a robust impact assessment. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost savings without considering the broader implications fails to meet professional obligations. Such an approach risks overlooking potential delays, increased future costs due to unforeseen issues, or even compromising the legal strategy, which could lead to adverse outcomes for the client. This violates the principle of diligent representation and prudent project management. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of planning over thoroughness is equally problematic. Rushing through the planning phase without adequate stakeholder consultation or impact analysis can lead to incomplete or flawed plans. This can result in scope creep, misallocation of resources, and missed opportunities, all of which are detrimental to effective litigation management and can expose the professional to liability or disciplinary action. A third incorrect approach that relies on assumptions without validation is also professionally unsound. Litigation is inherently complex and uncertain. Making critical planning decisions based on unverified assumptions, rather than data and thorough analysis, introduces significant risk. This lack of due diligence can lead to plans that are unrealistic, unachievable, and ultimately detrimental to the successful management of the litigation. Professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach to project initiation and planning. This includes clearly defining project objectives, identifying all relevant stakeholders, and actively engaging them to gather feedback and understand their needs. Crucially, it requires a systematic process for assessing the potential impacts of proposed plans across all dimensions of the litigation project, including legal, financial, operational, and reputational aspects. This proactive risk identification and mitigation strategy, coupled with continuous monitoring and adaptation, forms the bedrock of effective litigation management. Question 4. Governance review demonstrates that the firm's litigation department has identified a significant opportunity to reduce operational costs through the strategic implementation of new technologies. The review highlights that current manual processes for document review and case management are time-consuming and resource-intensive. The firm's leadership is seeking a recommendation on the most prudent approach to leverage technology for cost reduction in litigation, while ensuring continued high-quality client service and adherence to professional obligations. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of effective and ethical litigation management? Option A. Prioritize the adoption of the least expensive software solutions for document management and communication, assuming that basic technological functionality will suffice to reduce costs. Option B. Implement a broad range of new software tools across all litigation functions without a clear strategy, relying on individual attorneys to adapt and integrate them as they see fit to manage their caseloads more efficiently. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive assessment of current litigation workflows to identify specific pain points and cost drivers, followed by a targeted evaluation of technological solutions that demonstrably address these issues, including thorough vendor due diligence and security assessments. Option D. Immediately deploy the most advanced and feature-rich document review platform available, as it is likely to offer the greatest potential for efficiency gains and cost savings in the long run. The correct answer is D. Immediately deploy the most advanced and feature-rich document review platform available, as it is likely to offer the greatest potential for efficiency gains and cost savings in the long run. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the imperative to reduce litigation costs through technology with the overarching duty to provide competent and diligent representation. The challenge lies in identifying technological solutions that are genuinely cost-effective and enhance efficiency without compromising the quality of legal services, client confidentiality, or ethical obligations. A hasty or ill-considered adoption of technology can lead to increased costs, data breaches, or ineffective case management, all of which can have severe professional repercussions. Careful judgment is required to select and implement technologies that align with the firm's strategic goals and client interests, while adhering to professional conduct rules. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic evaluation of potential technological solutions, focusing on their demonstrable impact on cost reduction and efficiency within the specific context of the firm's litigation practice. This includes conducting thorough due diligence on vendors, assessing the security and privacy implications of any proposed technology, and ensuring that the implementation plan includes adequate training for legal professionals. The justification for this approach stems from the professional duty of competence and diligence. Lawyers have an ethical obligation to stay abreast of relevant technological advancements and to use them prudently to benefit their clients. This proactive and measured approach ensures that technology adoption is strategic, risk-mitigated, and ultimately serves the client's best interests by reducing unnecessary expenses while maintaining high standards of legal representation. Incorrect approaches analysis. Adopting a one-size-fits-all technology solution without assessing its suitability for the firm's specific litigation needs is professionally unacceptable. This approach risks incurring costs for underutilized or inappropriate tools, failing to address the actual drivers of litigation expenses, and potentially introducing new inefficiencies. It neglects the duty of diligence by not adequately researching or tailoring solutions to the firm's unique operational context. Implementing technology solely based on vendor marketing or perceived industry trends, without independent verification of cost savings or efficiency gains, is also professionally unsound. This can lead to significant financial outlays for technologies that do not deliver promised benefits, thereby increasing overall costs rather than reducing them. It demonstrates a lack of professional skepticism and due diligence in financial management and client service. Prioritizing the cheapest available technological option without considering its security, reliability, or integration capabilities is a critical ethical failure. This can expose client data to breaches, compromise case integrity, and lead to unexpected costs associated with system failures, or the need for subsequent, more robust solutions. This approach violates the duty to protect client confidences and to provide competent representation. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach technology adoption for cost reduction through a structured risk assessment framework. This involves 1. Identifying specific cost drivers within litigation processes. 2. Researching and evaluating technological solutions that directly address these drivers, considering factors like implementation cost, ongoing fees, training requirements, and potential for efficiency gains. 3. Conducting thorough due diligence on vendors, including their security protocols and track record. 4. Piloting promising technologies on a smaller scale to assess their effectiveness and ROI before full-scale deployment. 5. Ensuring comprehensive training and ongoing support for legal staff. 6. Regularly reviewing the performance and cost-effectiveness of implemented technologies. This systematic process ensures that technology investments are strategic, ethical, and aligned with the firm's commitment to client service and fiscal responsibility. Question 5. The risk matrix shows a high potential for cost savings and accelerated review timelines associated with the implementation of advanced AI-driven document review platforms in upcoming complex litigation. However, it also highlights a moderate risk of potential bias in algorithmic outputs and a low but non-zero risk of data integrity issues if the technology is not properly configured and validated. Considering these factors and the paramount importance of defensible discovery, which of the following approaches best aligns with the professional responsibilities of a certified litigation management professional? Option A. Defer the use of advanced AI technologies in favor of traditional manual review methods to entirely eliminate any perceived technological risks, regardless of potential cost and time implications. Option B. Implement the AI-driven platform immediately to capitalize on the projected cost savings and efficiency gains, assuming vendor assurances of accuracy are sufficient. Option C. Rely solely on the vendor's technical specifications and training materials to deploy the AI platform without further internal testing or validation to expedite the implementation process. Option D. Conduct a thorough, independent validation of the AI platform's performance on a representative sample of case data, including testing for algorithmic bias and data integrity, and develop a detailed configuration and oversight plan before full implementation. The correct answer is B. Implement the AI-driven platform immediately to capitalize on the projected cost savings and efficiency gains, assuming vendor assurances of accuracy are sufficient. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the rapid evolution of e-discovery technologies, such as AI-powered review tools and predictive coding, outpaces the development of explicit, universally codified regulations. Litigation management professionals must navigate this gap by applying established principles of professional responsibility, ethical conduct, and general legal standards to novel technological applications. The challenge lies in balancing the drive for efficiency and cost-effectiveness offered by these technologies with the fundamental duties of diligence, competence, and the preservation of evidence integrity. Failure to do so can lead to sanctions, reputational damage, and compromised legal outcomes. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a proactive and informed assessment of emerging technologies, focusing on their reliability, defensibility, and compliance with existing discovery rules and ethical obligations. This includes understanding the underlying algorithms, testing the technology's accuracy and consistency, and documenting its application thoroughly. Professionals must ensure that the chosen technology aids in identifying relevant and privileged information accurately and efficiently, without introducing bias or compromising the integrity of the discovery process. This aligns with the professional duty of competence, requiring practitioners to stay abreast of technological advancements and their implications for legal practice, as well as the duty to conduct discovery in a manner that is proportional to the needs of the case and consistent with ethical rules governing discovery. Incorrect approaches analysis. Adopting emerging technologies solely based on vendor claims of efficiency without independent validation or understanding of their limitations represents a significant ethical and professional failure. This approach risks introducing errors, overlooking crucial evidence, or inadvertently producing privileged information, thereby violating duties of diligence and competence. Relying on outdated discovery protocols when demonstrably superior and defensible technological solutions are available, and which could achieve proportionality and cost-effectiveness, can also be problematic. This failure to adapt and leverage appropriate tools may be seen as a lack of diligence or an inability to manage litigation effectively in a modern context. Blindly implementing a technology without considering its impact on data integrity or the potential for bias, even if it appears to expedite the process, is also a critical failure. This overlooks the fundamental obligation to ensure the accuracy and completeness of discovery responses, and can lead to spoliation or misrepresentation of evidence. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach the integration of emerging e-discovery technologies through a structured risk-based framework. This involves 1. Identifying the specific discovery needs and objectives of the case. 2. Researching and evaluating available technologies, focusing on their technical capabilities, validation studies, and vendor support. 3. Conducting pilot testing or validation exercises to assess the technology's performance in the context of the specific case. 4. Documenting the decision-making process, including the rationale for selecting or rejecting a particular technology and the steps taken to ensure its defensibility. 5. Consulting with technical experts when necessary to fully understand the technology's implications. This systematic approach ensures that technology adoption is driven by strategic advantage and compliance, rather than mere novelty or perceived cost savings, thereby upholding professional standards and ethical obligations. Question 6. Research into the implementation of technology-assisted review (TAR) for a complex commercial litigation matter has revealed several potential protocols. Which approach best aligns with the principles of proportionality, defensibility, and ethical discovery obligations in the context of U.S. federal civil procedure? Option A. Implementing a TAR protocol based solely on internal testing and validation metrics, without prior consultation with opposing counsel regarding the chosen parameters. Option B. Employing a TAR protocol that relies on a broad keyword search followed by a human review of all responsive documents, with TAR used only as a secondary tool for identifying potentially missed documents. Option C. Negotiating and agreeing with opposing counsel on the specific TAR parameters, including search terms, training set methodology, and validation metrics before commencing the review. Option D. Utilizing a TAR protocol that prioritizes the fastest and most cost-effective method, even if it involves a less rigorous training set and validation process. The correct answer is A. Implementing a TAR protocol based solely on internal testing and validation metrics, without prior consultation with opposing counsel regarding the chosen parameters. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the efficiency gains of technology-assisted review (TAR) with the fundamental duty of competent representation and the ethical obligations regarding the preservation and production of electronically stored information. (ESI). The core tension lies in ensuring that the chosen TAR protocol is sufficiently robust and defensible to meet discovery obligations without introducing undue risk of spoliation or producing incomplete or misleading information. Careful judgment is required to select a protocol that is both technologically sound and legally compliant. The correct approach involves a collaborative and transparent process with opposing counsel to agree upon the parameters of the TAR protocol. This includes defining the search terms, the training set, the validation metrics, and the review methodology. This collaborative approach is crucial because it fosters mutual understanding and reduces the likelihood of disputes over the discoverability of information or the adequacy of the review. It aligns with the principles of proportionality in discovery, as mandated by rules of civil procedure, and promotes efficient resolution of discovery disputes. Furthermore, it demonstrates a commitment to ethical practice by proactively addressing potential issues and ensuring that the review process is fair and reasonable. An incorrect approach that relies solely on internal metrics without consulting opposing counsel fails to acknowledge the adversarial nature of discovery and the potential for disagreement. This can lead to challenges regarding the completeness and accuracy of the review, potentially resulting in sanctions for noncompliance with discovery orders. Another incorrect approach that uses a TAR protocol with insufficient validation or a poorly constructed training set risks producing incomplete or inaccurate productions, violating the duty of diligence, and potentially leading to accusations of spoliation or obstruction. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes speed and cost savings over the integrity of the review process. By using a protocol that is known to be less reliable or by cutting corners on quality control, directly contravenes the ethical obligation to provide competent representation and to ensure that all discoverable information is produced. Professionals should approach TAR implementation by first understanding the specific discovery needs of the case and the nature of the ESI involved. They should then research and select appropriate TAR tools and methodologies, considering their validation and defensibility. Crucially, they must engage in open communication and negotiation with opposing counsel to establish a mutually agreeable TAR protocol. This proactive, collaborative, and transparent approach is the most effective way to navigate the complexities of TAR and ensure compliance with all applicable rules and ethical standards. Question 7. To address the challenge of ensuring comprehensive evidence preservation in a complex litigation matter, what is the most effective initial step for a certified litigation management professional, CLMP, to undertake when implementing a legal hold? Option A. Conduct a detailed risk assessment to identify all potential custodians and relevant data sources based on the nature of the litigation. Option B. Issue a broad, generic legal hold notice to all employees to ensure no relevant information is missed. Option C. Delay the issuance of legal hold notices until the opposing party files a specific discovery request. Option D. Focus legal hold efforts solely on the primary parties directly involved in the dispute, excluding peripheral individuals or systems. The correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed risk assessment to identify all potential custodians and relevant data sources based on the nature of the litigation. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a proactive and systematic approach to litigation risk management, specifically concerning the preservation of potentially relevant evidence. Failure to implement a robust legal hold process can lead to severe consequences, including spoliation sanctions, reputational damage, and compromised litigation outcomes. The core of the challenge lies in accurately identifying custodians, understanding the scope of potentially relevant information, and ensuring timely and effective preservation across diverse data sources, all while adhering to the specific legal and ethical obligations of the Certified Litigation Management Professional, CLMP, designation. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for thoroughness with the practicalities of data management and cost-effectiveness. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment to identify all individuals and systems likely to possess relevant information. This includes not only direct employees, but also contractors, third-party vendors, and relevant IT infrastructure. The assessment should consider the nature of the litigation, the potential sources of evidence, e.g., email, shared drives, collaboration platforms, mobile devices, and the likelihood of custodians possessing custodianship of such data. This systematic identification forms the foundation for issuing targeted and effective legal hold notices, ensuring that all potentially discoverable information is preserved from the outset. This aligns with the ethical duty of a litigation manager to ensure compliance with discovery obligations and prevent the destruction of evidence, which is a fundamental aspect of professional conduct in litigation management. An incorrect approach that relies solely on a broad, generic legal hold notice without a prior risk assessment is professionally unacceptable. This approach fails to adequately identify all relevant custodians and data sources, increasing the risk of overlooking critical information. It also may cast too wide a net, imposing unnecessary burdens on individuals who have no relevant information, leading to inefficiency and potential resistance. Another incorrect approach that involves delaying the issuance of legal hold notices until a later stage in the litigation, or only after a specific request for production, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This delay increases the likelihood of data destruction, either intentional or accidental, which can result in severe spoliation sanctions. The CLMP designation implies a commitment to best practices in litigation management, which inherently includes timely preservation of evidence. A third incorrect approach that focuses only on preserving data from a limited number of identified key individuals, without considering the broader ecosystem of information flow and potential custodians, is also professionally deficient. This narrow, focused risks missing crucial evidence residing with other individuals or within systems that are not immediately apparent. It demonstrates a lack of diligence in fulfilling discovery obligations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a thorough understanding of the litigation's subject matter and potential scope. This understanding should then inform a detailed risk assessment to identify all potential custodians and data sources. Based on this assessment, a precise and targeted legal hold notice should be drafted and promptly issued. Ongoing monitoring and communication with custodians are essential to ensure compliance and address any challenges. Professionals must prioritize proactive measures to prevent evidence spoliation and uphold their ethical responsibilities. Question 8. Analysis of a law firm's approach to selecting a third-party vendor for e-discovery processing, considering the firm's obligation to protect sensitive client data under the UK's data protection framework. Which of the following implementation strategies best aligns with regulatory requirements and professional best practices? Option A. Implementing a rigorous vendor due diligence process that includes detailed security assessments, contractual provisions for data protection and breach notification, and ongoing monitoring of the vendor's security posture. Option B. Engaging the vendor with the lowest bid after a cursory review of their standard privacy policy, assuming their compliance due to their market presence. Option C. Utilizing a general-purpose cloud storage solution for all processed data without specific encryption beyond the provider's default settings, relying on the assumption that the data is not exceptionally sensitive. Option D. Prioritizing speed of data processing by the vendor over any security considerations, with a commitment to address any potential security issues only if a data breach is reported. The correct answer is B. Engaging the vendor with the lowest bid after a cursory review of their standard privacy policy, assuming their compliance due to their market presence. Explanation. This scenario presents a common yet critical challenge in litigation management, balancing the need for efficient data processing with stringent data security and privacy obligations. The professional challenge lies in navigating the complex legal landscape, particularly the evolving requirements around data protection, while ensuring that litigation support activities do not inadvertently expose sensitive information or violate client confidentiality. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both legally compliant and ethically sound, safeguarding client interests and maintaining professional integrity. The correct approach involves a proactive and comprehensive data security strategy that integrates privacy by design principles. This means implementing robust technical and organizational measures to protect data throughout its lifecycle, from collection and processing to storage and destruction. Specifically, this includes conducting thorough due diligence on third-party vendors, ensuring they adhere to the same high standards of data security and privacy as the firm itself. Encryption of data both in transit and at rest, access controls, regular security audits, and comprehensive data breach response plans are essential components. This approach is justified by the overarching principles of data protection laws, such as the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. If the jurisdiction is the UK, which mandates data minimization, purpose limitation, and the implementation of appropriate technical and organizational measures to ensure a level of security appropriate to the risk. Ethical obligations to maintain client confidentiality and act in the best interests of the client further underscore the necessity of such a rigorous approach. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize cost savings or expediency over security by selecting a vendor based solely on price without adequate security vetting. This fails to meet the due diligence requirements mandated by data protection regulations and ethical codes, which require professionals to take reasonable steps to ensure that third parties handling sensitive data are trustworthy and compliant. Such a failure could lead to significant data breaches, regulatory fines, reputational damage, and loss of client trust. Another incorrect approach is to assume that standard, non-specialized cloud storage solutions are sufficient for litigation data without implementing specific security enhancements. Litigation data often contains highly sensitive personal information or commercially confidential material, requiring a higher level of protection than general-purpose storage. Relying on generic security features without tailored controls for the specific risks associated with litigation data exposes the firm and its clients to unacceptable risks of unauthorized access or disclosure, violating the principle of proportionality in data security measures. A third incorrect approach would be to delay or neglect the implementation of a data breach response plan. While proactive security measures are paramount, the possibility of a breach cannot be entirely eliminated. Failing to have a well-defined and tested response plan in place means that if a breach does occur, the firm will be ill-equipped to mitigate its impact, notify affected parties promptly as required by law, and conduct the necessary investigations. This reactive stance not only exacerbates the damage from a breach, but also demonstrates a lack of preparedness and a failure to meet regulatory obligations for incident management. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a thorough risk assessment of the data involved and the proposed processing activities. This should be followed by a comprehensive review of applicable legal and regulatory requirements. When engaging third-party vendors, a robust vendor management program that includes detailed security questionnaires, contractual clauses addressing data protection, and ongoing monitoring is crucial. Furthermore, fostering a culture of security awareness within the firm, providing regular training to staff on data protection best practices, and establishing clear internal policies and procedures are vital for maintaining a strong data security posture. Question 9. The investigation demonstrates that a litigation manager tasked with providing an initial cost estimate for a complex, multi-jurisdictional litigation matter has been presented with two distinct methodologies by their team. One methodology, favored by a senior associate eager to impress the client, relies heavily on historical data from similar but less complex cases and presents a single low-end projection. The other methodology, developed by a junior analyst, incorporates a broader range of historical data, includes expert consultations on potential discovery challenges, and presents a cost range with a clearly defined upper bound reflecting identified risks. The client has expressed a strong preference for a cost estimate that aligns with their budget, implying a desire for the lower projection, which cost estimation approach best aligns with the Certified Litigation Management Professional, CLMP, exams regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for litigation management professionals. Option A. A hybrid approach that selectively uses the most favorable data points from both methodologies to create a single, moderate estimate. Option B. The methodology that incorporates a broader range of historical data, expert consultations on potential discovery challenges, and presents a cost range with a clearly defined upper bound reflecting identified risks. Option C. The methodology that relies heavily on historical data from similar, but less complex, cases and presents a single, low-end projection, as this aligns with the client's stated budget preference. Option D. The methodology that relies solely on the senior associate's experience and intuition, as they have a long track record of managing similar cases. The correct answer is B. The methodology that incorporates a broader range of historical data, expert consultations on potential discovery challenges, and presents a cost range with a clearly defined upper bound reflecting identified risks. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a litigation manager to balance the ethical obligation to provide accurate cost estimations with the client's desire for a favorable, potentially understated, projection. The pressure to manage client expectations and secure continued engagement can lead to a temptation to downplay potential costs. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the estimation process is both realistic and ethically sound, adhering to professional standards of transparency and integrity. The correct approach involves utilizing a robust, data-driven methodology that incorporates historical data, expert input, and a thorough risk assessment to develop a range of potential costs. This approach is ethically justified by the CLMP Code of Professional Conduct, which mandates honesty and accuracy in all professional dealings. Specifically, it aligns with the principle of providing clients with reliable information upon which to base their decisions, even if that information is not what the client might prefer to hear. This method promotes informed decision-making and upholds the integrity of the litigation management process. An approach that relies solely on optimistic projections without accounting for potential contingencies or unforeseen complexities is ethically flawed. This failure to incorporate realistic risk factors violates the CLMP duty of competence and due care, as it misrepresents the likely financial exposure. Furthermore, presenting a single, low-end estimate without disclosing the possibility of higher costs is deceptive and erodes client trust, potentially leading to disputes and professional repercussions. Another incorrect approach involves selectively using historical data that supports a lower cost estimate while ignoring data points that indicate higher expenditures. The selective presentation of information is a form of misrepresentation and violates the CLMP obligation to act with integrity. It creates a false impression of cost certainty and fails to adequately inform the client of the full spectrum of potential financial outcomes. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should begin with a clear understanding of the ethical obligations under the CLMP Code of Professional Conduct. This involves prioritizing accuracy and transparency over client appeasement. Litigation managers should adopt a systematic approach to cost estimation, employing multiple techniques and actively seeking to identify and quantify potential risks and uncertainties. When communicating estimates, it is crucial to present a range of potential outcomes and clearly articulate the assumptions and factors that could influence the final costs. This ensures that the client is fully informed and can make decisions based on a realistic assessment of the situation. Question 10. During the evaluation of a new cloud-based e-discovery platform for a complex litigation matter, a certified litigation management professional, CLMP, is presented with a proposal that promises significant cost savings and enhanced review speed. The platform vendor assures the CLMP that their security measures and data handling protocols are industry-leading and fully compliant with all relevant regulations. The CLMP is aware that the client has expressed concerns about data privacy and the potential for data breaches. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the CLMP? Option A. Immediately implement the cloud-based platform to leverage its cost savings and speed, and address any potential data privacy or security concerns only if they arise during the litigation. Option B. Decline the use of any cloud-based discovery tools due to the inherent risks of data breaches and spoliation, opting for a less efficient, on-premises solution. Option C. Proceed with the cloud-based platform, relying on the vendor's assurances of compliance and security, and inform the client of the decision to use the platform. Option D. Conduct independent due diligence on the cloud provider's security protocols, data handling practices, and compliance certifications, and obtain informed client consent regarding the use of the platform, outlining potential risks and benefits. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the cloud-based platform, relying on the vendor's assurances of compliance and security, and inform the client of the decision to use the platform. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the efficiency and cost-effectiveness of cloud-based discovery tools with the stringent obligations of data preservation, spoliation prevention, and client confidentiality. The Certified Litigation Management Professional, CLMP, must navigate the technical complexities of cloud environments while adhering to established legal and ethical standards for evidence management. The core tension lies in ensuring that the adoption of new technology does not compromise the integrity of the discovery process or violate any applicable rules of professional conduct or court orders. The correct approach involves a proactive and documented strategy for managing cloud-based discovery. This includes conducting thorough due diligence on the chosen cloud provider to assess their security protocols, data handling practices, and compliance certifications. It also necessitates establishing clear protocols for data ingestion, processing, review, and defensible deletion within the cloud environment, ensuring that all actions are auditable and can withstand scrutiny. Crucially, this approach mandates obtaining informed client consent regarding the use of cloud services, explicitly outlining potential risks and benefits, and ensuring that the chosen platform meets the client's specific confidentiality and security requirements. This aligns with the professional duty of competence, requiring practitioners to understand the technology they employ and its implications for client matters, and the duty to preserve evidence. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the vendor's assurances without independent verification fails to meet the professional standard of due diligence. This oversight can lead to significant risks, including data breaches, unauthorized access, or inadvertent destruction of discoverable information, potentially resulting in spoliation sanctions. Another incorrect approach that neglects to obtain informed client consent before utilizing cloud-based discovery tools violates the duty of communication and transparency, potentially undermining client trust and creating ethical liabilities. Furthermore, failing to establish clear internal protocols for managing data within the cloud environment, assuming the vendor's default settings are sufficient. Risks: inconsistent application of preservation and deletion policies, increasing the likelihood of accidental spoliation. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a systematic risk assessment. This involves identifying potential vulnerabilities associated with cloud-based discovery, evaluating the likelihood and impact of those risks, and implementing appropriate mitigation strategies. A key element is to prioritize the integrity of the discovery process and client confidentiality above mere cost savings or convenience. Professionals should consult relevant ethical opinions and practice guides, and when in doubt, seek expert advice on technology and data security. The process should be documented at every stage to demonstrate a diligent and responsible approach to managing electronic discovery. Question 11. The performance metrics show a significant increase in litigation cycle times and external counsel spend over the last quarter, prompting senior management to demand immediate cost-cutting measures and faster resolution of ongoing cases. As the litigation manager, you are aware that a key business unit leader has expressed significant concerns about the potential impact of a rapid settlement on ongoing operational disruptions, and that the general counsel has been advocating for a more thorough discovery process to fully assess liability before considering settlement. How should you prioritize these competing demands and stakeholder interests? Option A. Inform senior management that the performance metrics are misleading and that the current litigation strategy is appropriate, without engaging further with the general counsel or business unit leaders on their specific concerns. Option B. Focus solely on reducing external counsel fees by renegotiating rates and limiting billable hours, without consulting the general counsel or business unit leaders on the potential impact on case strategy or risk. Option C. Initiate a meeting with the general counsel and the relevant business unit leader to discuss their concerns and collaboratively develop a revised litigation strategy that balances cost efficiency with thorough risk assessment and operational impact mitigation. Option D. Immediately implement aggressive cost-cutting measures and push for expedited settlements across all cases, prioritizing the reported performance metrics above all other considerations. Correct answer is D. Immediately implement aggressive cost-cutting measures and push for expedited settlements across all cases, prioritizing the reported performance metrics above all other considerations. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing competing stakeholder interests and ethical obligations within the framework of litigation management. The pressure to achieve positive performance metrics, such as reduced cycle times and cost savings, can create a conflict with the duty to ensure all relevant stakeholders are adequately informed and their concerns are addressed, particularly when those concerns might impact the efficiency or outcome of the litigation. Careful judgment is required to navigate this tension ethically and effectively. The correct approach involves proactively identifying all key stakeholders, understanding their respective roles and interests in the litigation, and establishing clear communication channels. This includes recognizing that while the primary client, e.g., the company, has ultimate decision-making authority, other stakeholders, such as in-house counsel, external counsel, business unit leaders, and potentially even regulatory bodies or affected third parties, have legitimate interests and roles that must be respected. Engaging these stakeholders early and often, and tailoring communication to their specific needs and concerns, fosters trust, facilitates informed decision-making, and ultimately contributes to better litigation outcomes. This aligns with the ethical principles of transparency, diligence, and client representation, ensuring that the litigation management strategy serves the broader interests of the organization and its stakeholders, not just narrow performance targets. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize performance metrics over comprehensive stakeholder engagement. For instance, focusing solely on reducing external counsel fees without consulting with the legal department or business units about the potential impact on case strategy or risk assessment would be a failure. This neglects the role of in-house counsel as a key advisor and decision maker, and the business unit's understanding of the operational implications of the litigation. Another incorrect approach would be to withhold information from certain stakeholders, such as senior management, about potential risks or complexities simply because it might slow down the process or complicate the narrative of success. This violates the principle of providing accurate and complete information to those who have a right to know and a role in strategic decisions. Furthermore, failing to consider the perspective of external stakeholders, if their involvement is relevant to the litigation's resolution or impact, could lead to unforeseen complications or reputational damage, demonstrating a lack of holistic risk management. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach to stakeholder analysis. This begins with identifying all individuals or groups who have an interest in or are affected by the litigation. Next, their roles, influence, and specific interests must be understood. This understanding then informs the development of a communication and engagement strategy that is tailored to each stakeholder group, ensuring that their concerns are heard and addressed appropriately. Throughout the litigation lifecycle, this stakeholder map should be revisited and updated, and communication should be ongoing and transparent, even when faced with pressure to achieve specific performance targets. The ultimate goal is to manage the litigation not just efficiently, but also ethically and in alignment with the broader organizational objectives and stakeholder expectations. Question 12. The evaluation methodology shows a systematic approach to estimating litigation resources and timelines that incorporates expert judgment, analysis of historical case data, and consideration of potential risk factors and contingencies. Which of the following best describes the professional obligation when presenting such estimates to a client? Option A, focusing solely on the most time-consuming and resource-intensive scenarios to ensure ample buffer, without explaining the likelihood of such scenarios. Option B, offering a single, fixed estimate based on the initial assessment, without further refinement or discussion of potential deviations. Option C, providing a range of potential timelines and resource requirements, clearly articulating the assumptions, methodologies, and potential variables influencing the estimates, and explaining the rationale for the chosen range. Option D, presenting the estimates as definitive timelines and resource requirements, emphasizing the most favorable potential outcomes. The correct answer is D, presenting the estimates as definitive timelines and resource requirements, emphasizing the most favorable potential outcomes. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because accurately estimating resources and timelines for litigation is inherently complex, involving numerous variables and uncertainties. A litigation professional must balance the need for realistic projections with the dynamic nature of legal proceedings. The CLMP designation implies a commitment to ethical and regulatory compliance, particularly concerning client communication and fiduciary duties. Therefore, the chosen methodology must be robust, transparent, and defensible. The correct approach involves a structured, multifaceted estimation process that incorporates expert judgment, historical data, and scenario planning. This methodology acknowledges the inherent unpredictability of litigation, while providing a reasoned basis for resource and timeline projections. It aligns with professional standards that require diligence, competence, and clear communication with clients regarding potential outcomes and associated costs. Regulatory frameworks often emphasize the importance of informed consent and the duty to provide accurate, albeit estimated, information to clients. This approach fosters trust and allows for proactive management of potential deviations. An approach that relies solely on optimistic projections without accounting for potential delays or unforeseen complexities is professionally unacceptable. This failure to consider downside risks can lead to client dissatisfaction, breaches of fiduciary duty, and potential regulatory scrutiny for misrepresentation or lack of due diligence. It demonstrates a lack of professional skepticism and an abdication of the responsibility to manage client expectations realistically. Another incorrect approach is to use overly broad or vague estimates that lack any discernible basis. Such estimates fail to provide clients with meaningful guidance and can be seen as a lack of preparedness or an attempt to avoid accountability. This can violate professional obligations to provide competent representation and to communicate effectively about the scope and potential duration of legal matters. A third incorrect approach involves anchoring estimates to initial, potentially incomplete, information without subsequent reevaluation. Litigation is a fluid process, and new information or strategic shifts can significantly alter resource needs and timelines. Failing to adapt estimates based on evolving circumstances demonstrates a lack of ongoing professional engagement and can lead to significant inaccuracies, potentially harming the client's interests and breaching professional duties. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a thorough understanding of the case's unique characteristics, relevant legal precedents, and the client's objectives. This framework should include iterative estimation, incorporating feedback loops and contingency planning. Regular review and adjustment of estimates based on actual progress and emerging information are crucial. Transparency with the client throughout this process, explaining the basis for estimates and any significant changes, is paramount. Question 13. Comparative studies suggest that effective litigation management hinges on robust supervision of legal staff. A certified litigation management professional, CLMP, is overseeing a junior associate tasked with drafting initial pleadings for a complex commercial dispute. The junior associate has completed the draft and informed the CLMP that they believe it is accurate and complete. The CLMP is facing a tight deadline for filing. Which of the following actions best upholds the CLMP supervisory responsibilities and ethical obligations? Option A. The CLMP allows the junior associate to file the pleadings directly, trusting their assessment of accuracy and completeness due to the time constraint. Option B. The CLMP delegates the final review of the pleadings to a senior paralegal, who will then confirm their accuracy before filing. Option C. The CLMP conducts a thorough review of the draft pleadings, verifying factual accuracy, legal arguments, and procedural compliance before filing. Option D. The CLMP asks the junior associate to provide a detailed written justification for each legal assertion in the pleadings before considering them for filing. The correct answer is C. The CLMP conducts a thorough review of the draft pleadings, verifying factual accuracy, legal arguments, and procedural compliance before filing. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in litigation management, ensuring that junior legal staff, while gaining experience, adhere to strict ethical and procedural standards under the supervision of a certified litigation management professional, CLMP. The CLMP responsibility extends beyond mere task delegation. It involves active oversight to prevent errors that could prejudice the client's case or violate professional conduct rules. The challenge lies in balancing the need for junior staff development with the imperative of maintaining the highest standards of legal practice and client representation. Careful judgment is required to identify the appropriate level of supervision for different tasks and different levels of staff experience. Correct approach involves the CLMP conducting a thorough review of the draft pleadings before they are filed. This demonstrates a commitment to the principle of competent representation and the duty of supervision. Under the regulatory framework governing legal professionals, a supervising attorney has a non-delegible duty to ensure that the work performed by those they supervise is accurate, ethically sound, and compliant with all applicable rules of procedure and evidence. A thorough review by the CLMP ensures that any potential errors or omissions are identified and corrected, thereby protecting the client's interests and upholding the integrity of the legal process. This aligns with the ethical obligations of diligence and competence. An incorrect approach would be to allow the junior associate to file the pleadings without a substantive review by the CLMP. This constitutes a failure in the duty of supervision and could lead to the filing of inaccurate or procedurally deficient documents, potentially resulting in sanctions, prejudice to the client's case, or even disciplinary action against the supervising attorney. It demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the professional responsibility to oversee the work of subordinate legal staff. Another incorrect approach would be to delegate the final review of the pleadings to a paralegal without the CLMP direct oversight. While paralegals can perform valuable tasks, the ultimate responsibility for the accuracy and legal sufficiency of pleadings rests with the licensed attorney. Allowing a paralegal to conduct the final review without attorney oversight bypasses the CLMP supervisory role and could result in the same negative consequences as filing without any review. A third incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the junior associate's assurance that the pleadings are correct. While trust is important, professional responsibility demands verification, especially for critical documents like pleadings. This approach abdicates the CLMP supervisory duty and places undue reliance on the potentially incomplete judgment of a less experienced professional. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a risk-based assessment. The CLMP must consider the complexity of the task, the experience level of the staff member, and the potential impact of errors. For critical tasks such as drafting and filing pleadings, a direct and substantive review by the supervising attorney is almost always warranted. The CLMP should establish clear guidelines for delegation and supervision, ensuring that junior staff understand their responsibilities and the importance of seeking guidance and review. Regular feedback and training are also crucial components of effective supervision. Question 14. The assessment process reveals a significant discrepancy between the legal fees billed by the litigation team and the client's perception of the value received. The client has expressed concerns about the overall cost and is requesting a review and potential adjustment of the final invoice. As a certified litigation management professional, what is the most appropriate course of action to address this situation? Option A. Inform the client that the billed fees are non-negotiable as they reflect the agreed-upon hourly rates and the time spent on the case. Option B. Delegate the fee negotiation entirely to the client's in-house counsel, disengaging from the discussion to avoid personal involvement. Option C. Conduct a detailed review of all billed hours, tasks performed, and outcomes achieved, comparing them against the original engagement agreement and prevailing market rates for similar legal services, and then propose a fee adjustment based on this objective analysis. Option D. Immediately agree to a substantial reduction in the billed fees to appease the client and avoid further conflict, regardless of the actual work performed. Correct answer is C. Conduct a detailed review of all billed hours, tasks performed, and outcomes achieved, comparing them against the original engagement agreement and prevailing market rates for similar legal services, and then propose a fee adjustment based on this objective analysis. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the client's financial interests with the ethical obligations of the legal professional regarding fee arrangements. The CLMP designation implies a focus on efficient and cost-effective litigation management, which inherently involves scrutinizing legal fees. The core challenge lies in ensuring that the negotiated fee is both fair to the client and reflective of the value and effort provided by the legal team, while adhering to professional conduct rules. Careful judgment is required to avoid overcharging, which can damage client trust and professional reputation, or undercharging to the point of compromising the quality of legal services. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the services rendered, the complexity of the case, the prevailing market rates for similar services, and the specific terms of the engagement agreement. This approach is right because it aligns with the fundamental ethical duty of reasonableness in legal fees, as often stipulated by professional conduct rules and bar association guidelines. Specifically, it upholds the principle that fees must be commensurate with the services performed and the results achieved. This proactive and data-driven review demonstrates a commitment to transparency and client advocacy, essential for maintaining professional integrity and client satisfaction. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on maximizing profit without regard for the value provided or the client's financial capacity is ethically unsound. Such an approach could violate rules of professional conduct that prohibit charging unreasonable fees. Another incorrect approach, which involves accepting the client's initial low offer without proper justification or negotiation, could lead to under-resourcing the case or failing to adequately represent the client's interests, potentially breaching the duty of competent representation. Furthermore, an approach that relies on vague justifications or personal opinions rather than objective criteria for fee negotiation fails to meet the standard of professional accountability and transparency expected of a certified litigation management professional. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured framework. First, understand the client's perspective and financial constraints. Second, objectively assess the value and scope of legal services provided, referencing the engagement agreement and case progress. Third, research market standards for comparable legal services. Fourth, engage in open and transparent communication with the client regarding the fee proposal and justification. And finally, be prepared to negotiate in good faith, always prioritizing ethical obligations and client best interests. Question 15. Investigation of a proposed alternative fee arrangement, a FA, for a complex litigation matter where the fee is structured as a hybrid of a reduced hourly rate and a success fee contingent on achieving a specific monetary recovery. The litigation management professional is considering this AFA to align their interests with the client's objective of maximizing recovery. Which of the following actions best demonstrates adherence to regulatory and ethical requirements for AFAs? Option A. clearly defining the AFA in a comprehensive written agreement that details the hourly rate, the specific criteria for the success fee, the calculation methodology, and potential conflicts of interest, and obtaining the client's informed written consent. Option B, suggesting an AFA solely based on a percentage of the total claimed amount, regardless of the complexity or the likelihood of recovery, to simplify the fee structure. Option C, proposing the hybrid AFA to the client after a brief verbal explanation of the success component, without a detailed written agreement outlining all terms and potential risks. Option D, implementing the hybrid AFA without disclosing to the client that the reduced hourly rate is significantly below market, potentially creating an incentive to prolong the matter to maximize the success fee. The correct answer is C, proposing the hybrid AFA to the client after a brief verbal explanation of the success component, without a detailed written agreement outlining all terms and potential risks. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a litigation management professional to navigate the ethical and regulatory landscape surrounding alternative fee arrangements, AFA, in the context of client representation. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring that the chosen AFA is not only financially advantageous, but also transparent, fair, and compliant with professional conduct rules, particularly those governing conflicts of interest and client communication. The professional must exercise sound judgment to avoid arrangements that could be perceived as exploitative or that undermine the client's informed consent. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and application of the relevant professional conduct rules and ethical guidelines pertaining to fee agreements. This includes ensuring that the AFA is clearly defined, communicated to the client, and agreed upon in writing. Crucially, it requires the professional to assess whether the AFA creates any potential conflicts of interest, such as an incentive to inflate costs or prolong litigation unnecessarily, and to mitigate such risks proactively. Transparency regarding the basis of the fee, potential outcomes, and the professional's responsibilities is paramount. This approach aligns with the ethical obligation to act in the client's best interest and to maintain the integrity of the legal profession. An incorrect approach would be to adopt an AFA that lacks clear terms or is not adequately explained to the client. This failure to ensure informed consent violates ethical duties of communication and transparency. Another incorrect approach would be to implement an AFA that creates a direct financial incentive for the professional to act against the client's best interests, such as a fee structure that disproportionately benefits the professional for inefficient or protracted work. This could constitute a breach of fiduciary duty and potentially violate rules against conflicts of interest. Furthermore, failing to document the AFA in writing, as often required by professional conduct rules, leaves both parties vulnerable and can lead to disputes, undermining professional standards. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of any proposed AFA against the applicable rules of professional conduct and ethical guidelines. This includes 1. Identifying the specific type of AFA being considered. 2. Assessing its clarity, fairness, and comprehensibility to the client. 3. Scrutinizing it for potential conflicts of interest or incentives that could compromise professional judgment. 4. Ensuring full and frank disclosure to the client, allowing for informed consent. And 5. Documenting the agreement meticulously in writing. Question 16. Compliance review shows that a key litigation project's progress reports have consistently shown minor variances between the reported hours logged by team members and the actual time spent on tasks, as indicated by system timestamps. The project manager has been asked to provide a consolidated report for the next client update. Which of the following actions best upholds the professional standards for project tracking and reporting in a regulated environment? Option A. The project manager should immediately investigate the source of the variances, seeking clarification from team members and reconciling the reported hours with system timestamps to ensure accuracy before submitting the consolidated report. Option B. The project manager should adjust the reported hours to align with the system timestamps without consulting the team members to present a consistent and seemingly accurate picture in the report. Option C. The project manager should omit the specific hour-based data from the consolidated report and focus only on qualitative progress updates to avoid highlighting the discrepancies. Option D. The project manager should proceed with submitting the consolidated report using the reported hours, assuming the variances are negligible and will not significantly impact the overall project assessment. The correct answer is A. The project manager should immediately investigate the source of the variances, seeking clarification from team members, and reconciling the reported hours with system timestamps to ensure accuracy before submitting the consolidated report. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in litigation management, ensuring accurate and timely project tracking and reporting to meet regulatory and client expectations without compromising the integrity of the information. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for comprehensive data with the practicalities of data collection and reporting, especially when faced with potential discrepancies or incomplete information. Careful judgment is required to determine the most appropriate course of action that upholds professional standards and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves proactively identifying and addressing discrepancies in project tracking data by seeking clarification and verification from the responsible parties. This demonstrates a commitment to accuracy and transparency in reporting, which is a cornerstone of professional litigation management. Specifically, this approach aligns with the ethical obligation to provide truthful and accurate information to stakeholders, as often mandated by professional codes of conduct and implied in regulatory frameworks that govern professional services. It also supports the principle of due diligence in managing litigation projects, ensuring that decisions are based on reliable data. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking or minimizing discrepancies to meet reporting deadlines would be professionally unacceptable. This failure to address inaccuracies undermines the reliability of project reports and can lead to misinformed decision-making by clients or oversight bodies. Such an action could violate regulatory requirements for accurate record-keeping and reporting, and potentially breach ethical duties of honesty and diligence. Another incorrect approach, which is to unilaterally adjust data without proper consultation or verification, is also professionally unacceptable. This action bypasses established procedures for data validation and can introduce further inaccuracies or misrepresentations. It erodes trust and can have serious consequences if the adjusted data is later found to be incorrect, potentially leading to regulatory sanctions or professional disciplinary action. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of the identified discrepancy. This includes understanding the nature and potential impact of the inaccuracies, consulting relevant internal policies and external regulations, and engaging with the individuals responsible for the data. The goal is to resolve the discrepancies through verification and correction, ensuring that all project reports are accurate, complete, and compliant with all applicable standards before they are finalized and disseminated. Question 17. Operational review demonstrates that a new litigation matter has been assigned, involving a complex contractual dispute with potentially significant financial implications. The client is eager for an immediate assessment of the case's viability and potential costs. The assigned litigation manager must provide a preliminary early case assessment (ECA) within 48 hours. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of effective litigation management and the professional obligations of a certified litigation management professional? Option A. Focus on identifying the core legal claims and defenses, assessing the key factual evidence supporting each, evaluating the potential range of outcomes, and considering early resolution strategies based on this initial analysis. Option B. Rely exclusively on the client's initial summary of events and their stated belief in the strength of their position to formulate the preliminary assessment. Option C. Conduct an exhaustive review of all client-provided documents and conduct preliminary interviews with all potential witnesses to build a complete factual record before formulating any assessment. Option D. Immediately advise the client that the case appears to have limited merit based on the initial description, recommending against further significant investment without a detailed investigation. Correct answer is C. Conduct an exhaustive review of all client-provided documents and conduct preliminary interviews with all potential witnesses to build a complete factual record before formulating any assessment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in litigation management, balancing the need for thoroughness in early case assessment (ECA) with the practical constraints of time and resources. The pressure to provide a preliminary assessment quickly, coupled with the inherent uncertainties of litigation, requires a professional to exercise sound judgment and adhere to established best practices and ethical obligations. The challenge lies in identifying the critical information needed for a meaningful ECA without getting bogged down in exhaustive detail prematurely, while also ensuring that the assessment is objective and defensible. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured and iterative process of information gathering and analysis, focusing on key elements that will shape the litigation strategy. This includes identifying the core legal and factual issues, assessing the strengths and weaknesses of the case from both sides, evaluating potential damages or relief sought, and considering early resolution opportunities. This approach is justified by the principles of efficient case management, which are central to the Certified Litigation Management Professional (CLMP) designation. It aligns with the ethical duty to provide competent representation and to manage litigation costs effectively for the client. By prioritizing the identification of dispositive issues and potential risks, this method allows for informed decision-making regarding further investigation, discovery, and settlement negotiations, thereby serving the client's best interests. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that focuses solely on gathering all possible documents and information without a clear analytical framework is inefficient and can lead to information overload, delaying the essential assessment. This fails to meet the objective of ECA, which is to provide a preliminary, actionable understanding of the case. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the client's initial narrative without independent verification or critical analysis of potential counterarguments or weaknesses. This risks providing a biased or incomplete assessment, potentially misleading the client, and failing to uphold the professional duty of diligence and objectivity. A third incorrect approach is to prematurely dismiss the case as having no merit based on initial impressions, without a thorough review of the relevant facts and law. This can lead to missed opportunities for the client and a failure to meet the professional standard of care in assessing litigation viability. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach ECA by first defining the scope of the assessment based on the case's complexity and the client's objectives. This involves identifying the critical questions that need to be answered to inform strategic decisions. A systematic review of available information, focusing on identifying key evidence, legal precedents, and potential risks, is crucial. This process should be iterative, allowing for refinement of the assessment as more information becomes available. Professionals must maintain objectivity, consider all sides of the case, and communicate their findings and recommendations clearly to the client, managing expectations realistically. Question 18. The review process indicates that a new e-discovery platform has been implemented to manage a large volume of electronically stored information for an ongoing litigation. The platform boasts advanced analytics and AI-driven review capabilities, promising significant time and cost savings. However, the legal team has not conducted an independent technical audit of the platform's data security protocols, its defensibility in court, or its compliance with the specific discovery rules of the governing jurisdiction. Which of the following approaches best reflects the professional and ethical obligations of the litigation management team in this situation? Option A. Immediately cease using the new platform and revert to previous methods until a thorough risk assessment and validation of the technology's security, defensibility, and compliance with jurisdictional rules can be completed. Option B. Inform the opposing counsel about the new platform and its capabilities, seeking their agreement on its use and the methodologies employed. Option C. Proceed with the use of the new platform, but implement additional manual checks on a small sample of data to mitigate potential risks without a full technical audit. Option D. Continue using the new platform, relying on the vendor's assurances of security and compliance, and address any potential issues that may arise during the discovery process. The correct answer is A. Immediately cease using the new platform and revert to previous methods until a thorough risk assessment and validation of the technology's security, defensibility, and compliance with jurisdictional rules can be completed. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the rapid advancement of legal technology, specifically in e-discovery, and the established ethical and regulatory obligations of legal professionals. The pressure to adopt new tools for efficiency must be balanced against the duty of competence, confidentiality, and the integrity of the discovery process. Careful judgment is required to ensure that technological adoption enhances, rather than compromises, these fundamental duties. The correct approach involves a thorough, risk-based assessment of the chosen legal technology. This means understanding the specific functionalities of the e-discovery platform, its data handling protocols, security measures, and how it integrates with existing workflows. Crucially, it requires verifying that the technology's use aligns with the governing rules of procedure and evidence, particularly concerning data preservation, defensibility of search methodologies, and the protection of privileged or sensitive information. This proactive due diligence ensures that the technology is not only efficient, but also compliant and ethically sound, thereby upholding the professional's duty of competence and safeguarding client interests. An incorrect approach would be to adopt a new e-discovery platform solely based on vendor claims of efficiency or cost savings, without independent verification of its capabilities and compliance. This failure to conduct due diligence can lead to significant ethical and regulatory breaches. For instance, relying on a platform with inadequate data security could violate the duty of confidentiality, exposing sensitive client information. Similarly, using a tool with unverified or proprietary search algorithms without understanding their limitations could result in the inadvertent production of privileged documents or the failure to identify responsive information, thereby violating discovery obligations and potentially leading to sanctions. Another incorrect approach is to implement technology without adequate training for the legal team, leading to misuse or misinterpretation of its features, which undermines the integrity of the e-discovery process and can result in errors that prejudice the client's case. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes a comprehensive understanding of both the technology and the governing legal and ethical landscape. This involves 1. Identifying the specific needs of the litigation, 2. Researching potential technologies and their vendors, focusing on security, defensibility, and compliance features, 3. Conducting pilot testing or seeking independent reviews, 4. Ensuring adequate training for all users, and 5. Establishing clear protocols for the technology's use throughout the discovery lifecycle. This systematic approach ensures that technology serves as a tool to enhance, rather than jeopardize, the professional's ability to represent clients effectively and ethically. Question 19. Benchmark analysis indicates that while cost containment is a significant factor in litigation management, the selection of a document review platform and associated workflow must also prioritize the defensibility and completeness of the discovery process. Considering the federal rules of civil procedure and ethical obligations, which of the following approaches best balances these competing demands for a complex, high-stakes litigation matter involving millions of documents? Option A. Utilizing a mid-tier document review platform with standard search functionalities and a single-stage attorney review process, assuming that the volume of documents will be adequately managed through sheer manpower. Option B. Implementing a cutting-edge document review platform with advanced AI capabilities, including predictive coding and continuous active learning, coupled with a multi-tiered review workflow involving initial culling, subject matter expert review, and final attorney validation, with rigorous quality control checks at each stage. Option C. Opting for a platform that offers extensive data visualization tools but lacks robust AI-driven analytics, and implementing a workflow that prioritizes speed of initial review over thoroughness, with a limited quality control process. Option D. Selecting the least expensive document review platform available, regardless of its technological sophistication, and relying solely on a basic keyword search and manual review process to manage the document population. The correct answer is B. Implementing a cutting-edge document review platform with advanced AI capabilities, including predictive coding and continuous active learning, coupled with a multi-tiered review workflow involving initial culling, subject matter expert review, and final attorney validation, with rigorous quality control checks at each stage. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a litigation management professional to balance efficiency and cost-effectiveness with the absolute imperative of maintaining the integrity and defensibility of the discovery process. The choice of document review platform and workflow directly impacts the ability to identify relevant, privileged, and responsive documents, which is a cornerstone of compliance with discovery rules. Failure to implement a robust and appropriate review process can lead to spoliation of evidence, sanctions, and damage to the client's case. Careful judgment is required to select a platform and workflow that not only meets budgetary constraints, but also satisfies legal and ethical obligations. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment of the case's unique characteristics, including the volume and nature of documents, the complexity of the legal issues, and the client's specific needs and risk tolerance. This assessment should then inform the selection of a document review platform that offers advanced features such as AI-powered analytics, predictive coding, and robust quality control mechanisms. The workflow should be designed to incorporate multiple layers of review, including initial culling, subject matter expert review, and attorney review, with clear protocols for issue spotting and privilege logging. This approach is justified by the overarching duty to conduct discovery in a manner that is both thorough and compliant with rules of civil procedure and ethical guidelines governing litigation. Specifically, Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 26B, 2B, and 26G mandate that discovery be proportional to the needs of the case, and that discovery requests and responses be signed by an attorney, certifying that to the best of their knowledge, information, and belief, formed after a reasonable inquiry, the discovery is consistent with the rules. Utilizing advanced technology and a structured workflow directly supports these obligations by enhancing accuracy, reducing the risk of inadvertent production of privileged information, and ensuring that the review process is defensible. An approach that prioritizes solely on the lowest cost platform without regard to its technological capabilities or the complexity of the case is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the proportionality requirement of discovery and the potential for producing incomplete or inaccurate discovery, which could lead to sanctions under Rule 37 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. Similarly, adopting a generic, one-size-fits-all workflow that does not account for the specific nuances of the case or leverage available technological efficiencies is also problematic. Such an approach risks overlooking critical documents, failing to identify privilege adequately, and ultimately undermining the integrity of the discovery process, potentially violating the duty of diligent representation. Relying exclusively on manual review without considering technological assistance, even when the volume of documents is substantial, can also be deemed professionally deficient, as it may not be a proportional or efficient use of resources, potentially leading to misinformation and increased costs without a commensurate increase in accuracy or defensibility. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a systematic process. First, thoroughly understand the scope and nature of the litigation and the associated discovery obligations. Second, evaluate the available technology and workflow options against these requirements, considering factors like cost, functionality, security, and vendor support. Third, engage in a risk-benefit analysis, weighing the potential costs of a more robust solution against the risks of inadequate discovery. Finally, document the decision-making process and the rationale for the chosen platform and workflow, ensuring transparency and defensibility. Question 20. Assessment of the most effective approach for an in-house counsel to manage external litigation budgets, considering the need for both cost control and successful case resolution, while adhering to professional obligations. Option A. Collaboratively develop a detailed, phased budget with the external litigation team, incorporating regular review and adjustment mechanisms tied to case strategy and client objectives. Option B. Authorize the external litigation team's budget requests without detailed scrutiny, prioritizing the provision of all necessary resources to achieve victory. Option C. Focus primarily on negotiating the lowest possible hourly rates with the external counsel, assuming this will inherently control overall litigation costs. Option D. Implement a strict, predetermined budget ceiling for all litigation matters, requiring the external team to operate within these limits, regardless of case complexity. The correct answer is A. Collaboratively develop a detailed, phased budget with the external litigation team, incorporating regular review and adjustment mechanisms tied to case strategy and client objectives. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the fiduciary duty to manage litigation costs effectively with the need to achieve the client's ultimate objectives. The in-house counsel faces pressure from senior management to control expenses, while simultaneously needing to ensure the litigation team has adequate resources to pursue a successful outcome. Misjudging the appropriate level of budget control can lead to either excessive spending or under-resourcing, both of which can have significant negative consequences for the client and the legal department's reputation. The core challenge lies in translating strategic litigation goals into a financially responsible and executable budget, requiring a nuanced understanding of risk, potential outcomes, and the cost implications of various legal strategies. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a collaborative and transparent budgeting process that aligns with the litigation strategy and client objectives. This entails the in-house counsel working closely with the external litigation team to develop a detailed budget that reflects the anticipated phases of litigation, specific tasks, estimated hours, and associated rates. This budget should be a living document, subject to regular review and adjustment based on case developments and actual expenditures. The justification for this approach stems from the principles of responsible legal practice and client representation. Under the framework governing professional conduct for legal practitioners, there is an ethical obligation to manage client matters efficiently and cost-effectively. This includes providing clients with clear and accurate information about costs and engaging in proactive cost management. A collaborative budget fosters transparency, allows for informed decision-making, and ensures that resources are allocated strategically to achieve the best possible outcome for the client, thereby fulfilling the duty of competent representation and avoiding potential claims of professional negligence related to cost overruns or inadequate representation due to budget constraints. Incorrect approaches analysis. Imposing a rigid, top-down budget without meaningful input from the external litigation team is professionally unacceptable. This approach fails to acknowledge the inherent uncertainties in litigation and the expertise of the external counsel in estimating the resources required for specific legal tasks. It can lead to under-resourcing, potentially compromising the quality of legal representation and jeopardizing the client's case. Ethically, this can breach the duty of competent representation and the obligation to act in the client's best interests. Proving the external litigation team's budget requests without critical review or establishing clear cost control measures is also professionally unsound. While it ensures adequate resources, it risks unchecked spending and can lead to significant cost overruns, failing the fiduciary duty to manage client funds prudently. This can result in client dissatisfaction and potential disputes over legal fees, undermining the trust relationship. Focusing solely on minimizing immediate legal fees without considering the potential impact on the litigation strategy and ultimate outcome is a flawed approach. Litigation is an investment, and while cost control is crucial, it should not come at the expense of achieving the client's objectives. This can lead to short-sighted decisions that ultimately prove more costly in the long run due to compromised case results. This approach neglects the overarching duty to achieve the best possible outcome for the client, prioritizing cost over effectiveness. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a strategic and collaborative approach to litigation budgeting. This involves 1. Understanding the client's objectives and risk tolerance. 2. Engaging in open dialogue with the external litigation team to develop a realistic and detailed budget that aligns with the agreed-upon strategy. 3. Establishing clear reporting mechanisms for budget tracking and variance analysis. 4. Implementing a process for reviewing and approving significant budget deviations, ensuring they are justified by case developments. 5. Regularly communicating budget status and any potential issues to the client. This systematic process ensures that cost management is integrated into the overall litigation strategy, promoting efficiency, transparency, and ultimately, the best interests of the client.